What modes of transport are there? What actually is a mode of transport? And how do the modes of transport compare with each other? Let me give you an overview of the most important modes of transport. We have road transport, we have rail transport, sea and inland waterway transport, air transport, and pipeline transport. Depending on the region you are in, the number of modes of transport and the importance will vary. So, for example, in Oman, inland waterway transport does not really play any important role, as far as I know, because there are just not enough rivers inside Oman that are useful for transporting any goods. However, in Europe there are some very important rivers that connect ports, and we have some more transport on inland waterways. Although the rail transport, of course you know about rail transport, but in Oman we simply do not have a railway at the moment, although there are ongoing plannings, but at the moment there's no railway, though we cannot use this mode of transport in Oman. On the other hand, pipeline transport has a much more dominant role in Oman compared to many European countries, because of the oil, of course. Nevertheless, pipeline transport is also relevant for European countries, not only because of oil and gas, but also think of water transport or all kinds of chemical transport. So, when we want to compare these different modes of transport, how do we do it? We can look at characteristics, we will do this later, but when I want to tell what mode of transport is very important for a country and what mode of transport is less important. One very popular measure of the modes of transport, of the performance of modes of transport, is the unit ton-kilometer. Though with this measure we try to measure how much goods are transported over what distance. So in this measure we have the weight of our goods and we have the transport distance measured in kilometers. Now we link both and we get to ton-kilometers. The unit is TKM. So let's look at one example. We transport goods with a weight of 5 tons, 20 kilometers via a truck, and then we continue transporting the same goods 150 kilometers via train. So what is the performance? What are the ton kilometers for this transport? We just multiply 5 tons times 20 kilometers plus 5 tons times 150 kilometers, and our performance, our transport performance for this transport is 850 ton kilometers. Be careful with this measure. It is very popular, as I told you, but it does not tell you the full truth, like so many measures. We heavily focus on the weight of goods. Yeah? So if we are talking about raw materials, for example, this is a very good measure. However, we do not take into account the value of these goods in this measure. So when we transport very expensive electronic devices like tablets, cell phones or notebooks, their value will be very high compared to their low weight. And if we rely on ton-kilometer as the only measure, then the transport performance will appear very low because the weight of these expensive devices is very low. However, as we transported many goods, many valuable goods, using other measures might result in a very different picture. Though, keep in mind, this performance measure is heavily impacted by the weights of the goods. So make sure that you compare similar types of goods when you apply this performance measure and when you discuss about this performance measure. How does this performance measure look like for countries in the European Union? I write here European Union 28 because this includes the 28 countries associated with the European Union. As you know, the EU grows and shrinks from time to time. At the moment we have the Brexit issue and Great Britain dropped out of the EU, though EU 28 is no longer applicable. These are the numbers for 2016, and on the x-axis we have the different modes of transport: road, maritime, air, inland waterways and rail. And on the y-axis we have the percentage of total ton kilometers. So that means adding these numbers up should give 100%, and then we see that road transport is more than 50% of the freight transport performance in Europe. So the freight transport performance measured in ton kilometers is dominated by the road, as more than half of the transport is performed via road transport. Maritime transport includes 33% and air transport only 0.1%. Keep in mind, for these statistics, air and maritime transport cover only transportation that is done within the region of the European Union. So, for example, maritime transport within the European Union means a ship goes from Spain to Denmark, for example. This would be an intra-European Union transport. However, what is not included in the statistics, if a ship goes from Dubai, from the port of Jebel Ali, to the port of Rotterdam inside the EU in the Netherlands. These types of transport would not be included in the statistics. So you see, using the ton kilometers, air transport does not play an important role. It's negligible. However, as you know, air transport is quite expensive compared to the other modes of transport, though we use air transport usually for very expensive equipments, for very expensive goods that are often quite light, though applying this measure of ton kilometers might not be appropriate, judging the importance of air transport. So keep in mind what measure you apply and what interpretation this implies. Now let's look at the different transport modes in more details and let's try to characterize these transport modes. Our first criteria is mass transport capacity. That means how able is a mode of transport to handle large volumes of goods at low costs. For example, container ships have a very good mass transport capacity. Speediness, the second criterion. How quick, how fast does the transport happen? What is the speed of transport? Though an airplane is very fast. A truck or a car is slower. Nevertheless, to judge the speed of a transport chain, of course we are interested how much time does it take from the point of origin to the point of destination. Though if you want to travel from Muscat to Dubai, which mode of transportation is faster, the plane or the car? For both modes you approximately need around 4 hours. Of course, the actual travel time of the plane is much faster than the car, but because of all the handling times at the transshipment terminal, that is at the airport, the overall speediness of this mode of transportation or of this transport chain might be not so good compared to car transportation. Okay, the third criteria, the network forming capability. This is the ability to be spatially inclusive with respect to the transport. What does this mean? So let's look at road transport. Using road transport, we can access each location that is connected by a road network. So for almost all types of transportations in industrial areas, we have a connection via road transport, though it has a very high network forming capability. On the other hand, if we are looking at railway transportation, then we first need to build a railway network. The railway network is much more difficult to expand than a street network, though the network forming capability of a railway network is much lower than the one of a street network. Predictability. How reliable is the transport? Usually train transport is very reliable because of the fixed schedules. The same holds for container transport via ships, which also is using fixed schedules. However, road transport is often less predictable. Think of your daily commuting. Often there happen unexpected traffic jams, and then the transport time, the time on the road, might increase significantly. How flexible are the schedules? In train or for some ship transport, we need to have a schedule. The same for air transport. We need to stick to a fixed schedule, and if there's only one plane per month going from Muscat to the US, then our schedule is very inflexible. On the other hand, if we look at road transport, we don't need to stick to a specific schedule. We can just use the truck any time of the day, any time of the week we would like to, though road transport has a very high flexibility in terms of scheduling. The spatial flexibility refers to how easy is it to expand a network for a specific mode of transport. Again, a street network is very flexible. We can just connect new industrial areas to the street network. This is usually no problem. However, for ship transportation, we need to rely on the position of ports.